Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Rex Donovan stood at the observation deck, staring out at the vast expanse of stars. He had spent his entire life studying the intricacies of diplomacy, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. Earth's first contact with an alien empire had begun as a cautious exchange of signals, but now it teetered on the edge of catastrophe. The Valdar Dominion was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, an empire so vast and ancient that Earth seemed like a child in comparison. The room around him buzzed with quiet urgency. Diplomats, military personnel, and advisors worked tirelessly, exchanging reports, reviewing data, and offering advice Rex mostly ignored. His focus was elsewhere. The Valdar fleet was positioned just beyond Earth's defensive perimeter, a colossal armada bristling with weapons that could turn the entire planet to ash. It was a reminder of what was at stake. One wrong word, one misstep, and this fragile first contact could spiral into war. Rex, came a voice from behind him. He didn't need to turn to know it was Ambassador Selena. She had been his mentor for years, a seasoned diplomat whose expertise in interstellar relations had guided Earth's first tentative steps into the galaxy. Her voice was calm, but he could hear the tension beneath the surface. "It's time." Rex nodded and took a deep breath. He adjusted the collar of his formal attire, a blend of traditional Earth style with subtle touches designed to acknowledge Valdar culture. Every detail mattered now. "How's the mood in the council?" he asked, divided. Selena replied. "The military wants to prepare for the worst. The counselors are worried about concessions, but they trust you." For now." "For now," Rex echoed, his thoughts heavy. Trust was a delicate thing, easily broken in times like these. He turned to Selena, his eyes searching hers for any trace of doubt. "Do you think I'm ready for this?" She smiled, a rare softness breaking through her usual stern demeanor. "If anyone can pull this off, Rex, it's you. You've got a way of seeing things others don't. Just remember what I taught you. Stay calm, stay humble, and listen." He appreciated her words, but Rex knew the weight of the moment rested squarely on his shoulders. Earth's fate depended on his ability to negotiate, to bridge the gap between two civilizations that couldn't be more different. The Valdar emissary, Admiral Zoltar, was an imposing figure. Standing over 7 feet tall, with a physique that seemed sculpted from stone, Zoltar's mere presence filled the negotiation chamber with a palpable tension. His gray-blue skin, marked by centuries of battle scars, contrasted with the sharp, metallic uniform of the Valdar military. Rex had read the files. Zoltar was no mere diplomat. He was a warlord, a commander who had led countless conquests across the galaxy. And now, he stood across from Rex, his eyes cold, calculating, and unblinking. Rex stepped forward, extending his hand, a gesture of goodwill, though he knew it was a human custom unfamiliar to the Valdar. Zoltar's gaze flicked down to Rex's hand, then back to his face, and for a moment, Rex thought the Admiral would refuse. But then Zoltar reached out, his massive hand engulfing Rex's in a grip that could crush bone. The message was clear: "You are weak." Rex didn't flinch. "Admiral Zoltar, it's an honor to meet you. On behalf of Earth, I hope this is the beginning of a peaceful dialogue between our peoples." Zoltar's voice was deep, reverberating through the chamber. "Peaceful dialogue? Earth presumes much for a species that has only just begun to crawl beyond its own star." Rex held his ground, refusing to rise to the bait. "We may be new to the stars, but we value cooperation. We've studied your history. The Valdar Dominion is a force to be reckoned with, but we believe there's room for peaceful coexistence." Zoltar's expression didn't change. He leaned forward slightly, towering over Rex. "Peace is the language of the weak. The Valdar have ruled this sector for millennia, not through words, but through strength. What does Earth offer that we could not simply take?" This was the moment Rex had prepared for, the thin line between negotiation and provocation. He knew the Valdar respected strength above all, but their empire had thrived not just on brute force, but on careful strategy and alliances. He needed to show strength, but in a way that resonated with the Valdar mindset. "We offer something the Valdar cannot take by force," Rex said, his voice steady. "Creativity. Innovation. Humanity's strength doesn't lie in its weapons, but in its adaptability. We are a species of thinkers, problem solvers. We evolve in ways no empire can predict. That is our strength, and that is why Earth is worth more as an ally than as a conquered territory." Zoltar studied Rex for a long moment, his eyes narrowing slightly. The silence stretched, each second feeling like an eternity. Then, the Admiral's lips curled into what could almost be called a smile, though it was more predatory than friendly. "We shall see," Zoltar said, turning away without another word. The negotiation was far from over, but Rex had planted the seed. He could feel it. The next few days were a whirlwind of tense meetings and backdoor discussions. The Valdar Council was a labyrinth of politics, each faction vying for control, each with its own agenda. Rex had to navigate these treacherous waters carefully, balancing Earth's interests with the realities of dealing with an empire that saw humanity as little more than an upstart species. Selena had warned him that not everyone on Earth supported his mission. The military, in particular, was growing restless. They were readying Earth's defenses, preparing for the worst-case scenario. Rex understood their concerns, but he knew that any display of aggression would only escalate the situation. One evening, as Rex was reviewing the latest reports, a coded message arrived. It was from an unknown source within the Valdar. Curious, Rex decrypted the message and read it carefully. It was from Counselor Thera, a member of a lesser-known faction within the Valdar leadership. The message was simple but chilling: "The Emperor is dying. Zoltar seeks war to solidify his power. Trust no one." Rex's mind raced. This was the opening he needed, but it also meant the stakes were higher than ever. If Zoltar was using Earth as a pawn in his power struggle, then the entire galaxy could be at risk. The next negotiation was more intense. Zoltar's demeanor had shifted. He was more aggressive, pushing harder for concessions that Rex couldn't agree to. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "We demand access to Earth's resources," Zoltar declared. "Your planet is rich with minerals and elements we require. In exchange, we will offer protection. But know this: refusal will be seen as a declaration of war." Rex took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Earth is willing to engage in trade, but we will not be subjugated. We value our autonomy, just as the Valdar do. There's another way." Zoltar's eyes narrowed. "What do you suggest?" Rex stood, pacing slowly as he spoke, drawing on his years of training. "Your empire is vast, but it's not invincible. Empires throughout history have crumbled, not from external threats, but from internal fractures. I know about the divisions within your council. War with Earth would weaken the Valdar, make you vulnerable to those who seek to usurp your power." Zoltar's expression darkened, but he didn't interrupt. "What Earth offers is more than just minerals," Rex continued. "We offer partnership. Our creativity, our innovation, it's what sets us apart. Together, we can advance both of our civilizations. Alone, we risk destruction. For a long moment, Zoltar said nothing. The silence was oppressive, and Rex's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the weight of every eye in the room on him. Then, slowly, Zoltar rose from his seat. "You speak well for a human," he said, his voice low. "But words are not enough." Rex knew this was the turning point. He stepped forward, looking Zoltar directly in the eyes. "Then let my actions speak. I propose a formal alliance. Earth and the Valdar, working together, not as conqueror and subject, but as equals. We can create something greater than either of us alone." Zoltar stared at Rex for what felt like an eternity. Then, with a slow nod, he said, "I will consider your proposal. But know this, human, if you fail, Earth will burn." The following days were a blur of final negotiations, as both sides worked through the details of the agreement. Rex spent hours in heated discussions with Valdar officials, finding common ground, making compromises where necessary, but always holding firm on Earth's core values. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the treaty was signed. Earth and the Valdar Dominion had formed an unprecedented alliance, one that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. As Rex stood on the observation deck once more, watching the Valdar fleet prepare to depart, he felt a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but for now, peace had been achieved. Selena joined him, her expression unreadable. "You did it," she said softly. Rex nodded. "For now." She glanced at him. "You don't sound convinced." Rex sighed, his eyes still fixed on the stars. "This is just the beginning. The Valdar may be our allies now, but alliances are fragile. We'll have to work every day to keep the peace." Selena smiled slightly. "That's the burden of diplomacy. But you're ready for it." Rex smiled back, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I hope so. The galaxy is watching us now. We can't afford to make any mistakes." As the Valdar fleet disappeared into the void, Rex allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. Earth's place in the galaxy had forever changed. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a spark of hope. The universe was vast, full of unknown dangers and opportunities. But humanity, with its creativity, resilience, and determination, had taken its first step toward becoming a force to be reckoned with. Rex Donovan couldn't shake the feeling of unease as he returned to his quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel. The silence that followed the departure of the Valdar fleet was almost deafening. Even the crew, normally buzzing with activity, seemed subdued as they processed what had just occurred. It was the first interstellar peace treaty of its kind, a monumental achievement for Earth. But Rex knew better than anyone how fragile that peace could be. He stared at his reflection in the small, circular window, watching the stars stretch out before him. This was a victory, but the real work was just beginning. He thought of Admiral Zoltar, the warlord who had nearly crushed Earth's fledgling hopes of peace with his aggressive posturing. There was a sharp intelligence behind Zoltar's eyes, but also an ambition that Rex couldn't afford to ignore. The Valdar might have agreed to peace for now, but Zoltar was not the kind of leader to be content with anything less than absolute power. Rex turned away from the window and ran his fingers through his short-cropped hair, trying to clear his mind. The days ahead would be filled with diplomatic efforts to solidify this fragile alliance, and the pressure was already mounting. Earth's leaders expected him to keep the Valdar in check, while also ensuring that humanity's own interests weren't sacrificed in the process. The chime of his communicator snapped him out of his thoughts. He crossed the room and tapped the screen. Selina's face appeared, her usual calm expression replaced with something much more serious. "Rex, you need to come to the briefing room. Now." Without asking questions, Rex left his quarters and made his way through the winding corridors of the ship. The sense of urgency in Selina's voice put him on edge. When he arrived at the briefing room, he found not only Selina but also several high-ranking members of Earth's United Galactic Council, their faces grim. "What's going on?" Rex asked, glancing from one face to the next. Selina gestured to the holographic display in the center of the room. "We intercepted a transmission from Valdar space, encrypted but not well enough. It appears Zoltar is already mobilizing part of his fleet." Rex felt his stomach drop. Mobilizing? For what? Selina exchanged a look with one of the counselors, then turned back to Rex. "We're not sure yet. The transmission was cut off before we could gather more intel, but it's clear that Zoltar is planning something. This could be a show of force against one of his rivals within the Valdar, or it could be more." "More?" Rex's voice was tight with disbelief. "We just signed a treaty. Zoltar was part of that negotiation. He can't possibly be thinking of breaking it already. You know as well as I do that Zoltar doesn't operate by the same rules we do," Selina said. "For him, treaties are just tools, and if he believes he can gain more by breaking it, he will." Rex clenched his fists, feeling the tension coil in his chest. He had worked so hard to secure this peace, to pull Earth back from the brink of destruction. The thought that it could all unravel so quickly made his blood boil. "What are our options?" Rex asked, his voice level despite the anger simmering beneath. One of the counselors, a gray-haired man named Commander Holt, spoke up. "We could mobilize our own fleet, show Zoltar that we're not going to sit idly by while he plays his games." Rex shook his head. "That would only provoke him. If we mobilize now, we're playing right into his hands. He wants an excuse to go to war." Selina nodded in agreement. "We need to be smarter than that. Zoltar thrives on conflict, but there are others within the Valdar who don't share his view. Counselor Thera, for one. She's been an ally from the beginning." "Then we need to reach out to her," Rex said. "We can't assume Zoltar speaks for the entire Valdar Empire. If we can convince Thera and others like her that peace is still in their best interest, we might be able to neutralize Zoltar's power grab before it escalates." Holt frowned. "That's a dangerous game, Donovan. If Zoltar finds out we're trying to sway his rivals against him, it could push him over the edge." "Maybe," Rex admitted. "But it's our best shot. If we don't act, Zoltar will keep pushing until he finds an excuse to reignite hostilities, and then this whole treaty will have been for nothing." There was a long silence as the counselors exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, Selina spoke again, her voice steady. "Rex is right. We need to act, but we need to do it carefully. I'll send a message to Thera, see if she's willing to meet with us discreetly." Rex felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. The next several days were a blur of quiet, tense waiting. Rex remained on edge, pacing the halls of the ship, unable to shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly wrong. He was kept informed of Earth's preparations, military contingencies, political maneuvers, and diplomatic outreach, but all of it felt like holding a fragile vase teetering on the edge of a table. Finally, the message came through. Thera had agreed to meet, but under strict conditions. The rendezvous would take place in neutral space, far from the prying eyes of both the Valdar and Earth. Rex prepared for the meeting with a sense of urgency, knowing that the future of the treaty, and possibly the future of Earth, rested on this encounter. When Rex arrived at the designated meeting point, a secluded asteroid field far from any major star systems, he was greeted by Thera's sleek diplomatic shuttle. The Valdar counselor herself was a striking figure, her pale silver skin and flowing robes marking her as one of the more traditional members of Valdar society. But beneath her calm exterior, Rex sensed a sharp intelligence, one that had served her well in the cutthroat world of Valdar politics. Counselor Thera, Rex greeted her with a respectful nod as he boarded her shuttle. "Thank you for meeting with me." Thera's expression was inscrutable, her gaze fixed on him with a quiet intensity. "I agreed to this meeting because I believe in the possibility of peace, Rex Donovan. But you must understand that Zoltar's influence is growing. His supporters grow more vocal by the day, and the Emperor's health continues to deteriorate. Which means Zoltar will push harder to solidify his power," Rex said, finishing her thought. "That's why we need you. You've always believed in peace. We need to make sure the voices of reason in the Valdar are stronger than the voices of war." Thera sighed softly, her eyes flicking to the stars beyond the window. "You are asking much of me. Defying Zoltar openly would be dangerous." "I'm not asking you to defy him," Rex said. "Not yet, anyway. But we need to show him that war isn't his only option. The Valdar have always prided themselves on strength. Show Zoltar that peace can be a strength too. If enough of your council stands with you, Zoltar will have no choice but to listen." Thera studied him for a long moment, weighing his words. Finally, she nodded. "I will speak with my allies. But know this, if Zoltar senses any weakness, any hint that Earth is not prepared for what might come, he will strike. Be ready, Rex Donovan." Rex nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. "We'll be ready." The shuttle ride back to his ship was quiet, giving Rex time to reflect on the precarious situation. Thera had promised to help, but even she had her limits. Zoltar was a force to be reckoned with, and he wouldn't back down easily. Rex knew the next few days could determine the course of Earth's future in the galaxy. Back aboard his ship, Rex convened with Selena and the counselors once more. The tension in the room was palpable, but there was a renewed sense of purpose. They had a chance, a slim one, but a chance nonetheless, to prevent Zoltar's ambitions from plunging the galaxy into chaos. As the days passed, reports trickled in from Valdar space. Zoltar's fleet had slowed its movements, and there were signs that some of the more moderate voices in the Valdar Council were beginning to speak up. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give Rex hope. Finally, the message they had been waiting for arrived. Zoltar had agreed to meet once more, this time with Thera and other key counselors present. It was a high-stakes negotiation, one that could either solidify the peace or send them all spiraling into war. When Rex entered the negotiation chamber, he could feel the tension in the air. Zoltar stood at the head of the table, his expression as unreadable as ever. Thera and the other counselors took their seats, their faces grim but resolute. Rex took a deep breath and stepped forward. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. "Admiral Zoltar," Rex began, his voice steady. "We have come too far to let this peace slip through our fingers. Earth is ready to work with the Valdar, not as subjects, but as allies. Together, we can achieve more than either of us could alone." Zoltar's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Rex thought he might reject the offer outright. But then, slowly, the Admiral spoke. "Peace, Rex Donovan, is not won easily. But I see now that Earth's strength lies not in its weapons, but in its will. Perhaps there is more to your people than I thought." Rex held his breath as Zoltar turned to the other counselors. I will honor the treaty, Zoltar said. But know this, if Earth falters, if you show weakness, I will not hesitate to act. Rex nodded, relief washing over him. We won't falter. As the meeting concluded, Rex knew that the peace they had worked so hard for was still fragile, but it was real. The galaxy was watching, and the future was uncertain. But for now, Earth had secured its place among the stars.